All right, thank you. Afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, May 20th, 2021 Watertown City Plan Commission meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Yes. Dolly,
Here.
Brink,
Here.
Aletsky,
Here.
Culhane,
Present.
Spire,
Here.
and then Hanson, Dargits Johnson, Ford, and Kays are absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Brandy. Item 3 on the agenda is invitation for public comment participant submittal. We have a sign up there in the room. If you'd like to speak to the board on something that's not on the agenda, we'll have a few minutes for everybody at the end of the agenda. Feel free to sign up now. Item 4 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion for the approval?
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Aletsky, second by Culhane. Go ahead and take a vote on that.
Dolly,
Yep.
Brink,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Item 5 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 6th, 2021 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second, Colleen.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion on those minutes? Okay, we'll take a vote.
Dolly,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 6 is the regular agenda. 6A is commission consideration for resolution 2021-21, plat of River Ridge. Brandy?
Yes, thank you, Blake. So this is the plat of River Ridge Estates, 8th edition. The owner here is Greg Hofteaser. He's the acting agent for High Plains Development Corporation. And I'll pull up this agenda here. And just for proximity, for those of you who do not know where River Ridge is, it's the northeast side of town, 2nd Street, northwest, and then this is 14th Avenue. It is in the, to the north of there. So then, and then you have the Valley View addition. So this development here has an effective and approved preliminary plan, and the plat that they are presenting today is in conformance with that plan. And also the park dedication, so taking a step back to this area has been rezoned. It is R1 single family residential. We just did that recently, if you recall. And so the zoning is correct, annexed and zoned, in conformance with the prelim plan, and just going on with their next phase here. And let me pull that up. So they'll be bringing in 26 R1 lots, and the park dedication has been taken care of back with the River Ridge 7th edition. And so with that, I'll open it up for questions.
And Brandy, on that sheet that you've got there, the site plan or the plat plan, the park dedication is the area just to the west of Cheyenne Lane, northwest, right? That gap between what's labeled lot 11 and 12.
Yes. Yep. So here on the GIS, if you can see that.
That large area.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Go ahead and open the public hearing on this if anybody's here to speak on behalf or against.
We talked about this development a couple of weeks ago, didn't we?
Yes, that was for the rezone. Yep. So they annexed and zoned the entire quarter section as agricultural. And then so every time that they're ready for the next phase, then they have to rezone to the R1 or to be in conformance with what was approved in their prelim plan.
And as you said, the proposal here today is in accordance to the approved preliminary plan. There's no deviations from it.
Nope. Nope. I think I'll just note too that in the development agreement, we did have conversation and we were specific that there would be services stubbed to the parkland because the Park and Rec would like to develop that with a bathroom. So that will be pertinent to have utilities stubbed in there before the road is paved. So we did explicitly note that on the development agreement. And then that, as you guys know, is authorized for the mayor to sign by the city council. We always we typically include them with the plats just for informational purposes.
Yeah, so we're not taking action on that necessarily today. We're taking action on the plat, and then city council will take action on the agreement.
Yep.
Was there anybody in the room to speak in the open? Anybody online?
Nope, I think,
Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
and actually, there aren't public hearings with plats.
You're right.
I'll make a motion to
Better
approve
say
the
it, I'm
plat.
sorry.
Second, Colleen.
I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion on this before we take a vote? It's pretty straightforward. It's in line with all the expectations we've had thus far. Go ahead and go with a roll call vote.
All right, Dolly,
Yes?
Brink,
Yes.
Oletsky,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll move on to item 6B on the agenda, which is resolution 2021-23, which is another plat, this time of the Lakes of Willow Creek First Edition.
All right, thank you, Blake. Give me 1 second here to get that pulled up. Okay, so here's another development that we're pretty familiar with. This is the Lakes of Willow Creek, right there north of Willow Creek Drive, and then west of 31st Street Northeast, which actually resides in the county, and is the gravel street there. I'll point that out, 31st, and then Willow Creek Drive. And then on the north side is 3rd Avenue Northeast. So we are looking at platting the first edition today. Pull up the plat here. And so this property as well has been annexed and zoned. It is zoned C3 highway commercial. We just recently did a rezone, actually a couple years ago now. And then the preliminary plan is approved and effective, and this plat is in conformance with that. As far as we do not have a development agreement attached with this one. I do have one that I can pull up, though, to share with the board as the draft. We are ironing out some details with the construction plans, and then before it would go to City Council, we will have those final details resolved and included in the development agreement. Really, the only thing, it's all very standard. Everything will meet the engineering design standards and ordinance for the infrastructure improvements. We just added because previously this subdivision was known as the Stromseth East Side Edition. And so then this plat will be vacating portions of that. But there was a development agreement included with that plat and recorded. And there was just some language in there about maintaining 31st because that was the primary access when this was Stromseth, because this street was never constructed. Now the current developer and the owner is J&J Land Sales, and Jamie Andrews is the acting agent, and he is here as well. So if there's, questions there, but they would maintain, we just added the language back in there that they would maintain 31st to the Highway 212 frontage street. And that's kind of in collaboration with the street department. I did verify with Rob Bainan that they do maintain it. And then Jamie just makes sure that he just goes above and beyond. So we added that language into the development agreement so that we were not losing that as we vacate the plat of the Stromseth East Side Edition. I think with that, let me see if there's any other good details. So this plat contains 64.48 acres, and then it will create 33 C3 highway commercial lots. And we will enter the development agreement where they will be installing all of the streets within the 2-year time frame, the typical. And then these lots here, if anybody was wondering, there will be a private street that will provide frontage and access there that will also be in compliance with our standards.
As far as those streets go, Brandy, this is all in compliance with our major street plan and comprehensive land use plan.
Yes. Yep. 28th Street actually in the comp plan is shown to be the collector route, just because with 31st, just not really knowing its future.
Right. And so 28th will be constructed to the standards that a collector route would be.
Yep. And they have shown that in their construction plans that engineering has been reviewing.
Okay. In the summary here, it also states that there's a couple other parties signing on to the plat due to the way that the land ownership runs. You know, one of those being the city. Is that due to that old railroad right away that this road crosses?
Yeah.
Is that the city property?
So it is actually, if you can see here that I'm pointing out, it's the portion that connects to Willow Creek Drive.
Okay.
So, and the developer will be responsible for the costs associated with installing that infrastructure and making that connection.
Okay.
And then the other proprietor that will be signing off on the plat are the Lavacheks. They own Lot 3 of Stromseth East Side Edition. So that's the only portion of Stromseth East Side Edition that will not be vacated. But then because there is their frontage road, though, they need access. So that's why they are also signing off. And then again, Jamie will be installing that street. So they won't have obligations there.
Brandy, when we look at the plat, what does all the shading mean?
That's the floodplain. So
Is there no concern that a lot of this plat's on the floodplain? And what's the different shading? Is it different? Is it 100-year versus 5?
So they actually, I think it's just the 100-year, and I can, maybe Colin can confirm too, but so the gray is just the plat itself, but then the darker shading is the 100-year, but this area is actually unique because currently it's only an approximate A zone. So the city did a independent study, so we do have best available data that we are able to use, but FEMA had never put elevations to this area. Now we're going through a map update with FEMA, and so they've done a detailed study here, and so we do have new information, and I believe this is what it's reflecting. And then, but also, we kind of went back and forth with floodplain, showing floodplain boundaries on the maps. I think actually, and should have caught this earlier probably, but I think if we just have a note instead of actually showing the boundaries, so that somebody looking at the plat would know that it is involved with the floodplain. But if the boundaries change, we don't want to give them false information either. So then once we actually get the updated maps, which we predict to be 2022, then this area will become, it'll be a AE zone, which is the 100-year floodplain. And the E just stands that it will have elevations. Today, FEMA doesn't provide that, but we do have, the city did an independent study, so we do have better information.
But absent fill getting hauled in, you don't anticipate this coming out of the 100-year floodplain?
Yes.
And they can haul fill in, right? I mean, that's, there's no...
Yeah, and they can, they will be constructing so that everything is above the 100-year. Structures have to be. And then as well, there's, in the engineering design standards, there's requirements for the street construction as well. So that in the 100-year event, it's not inundated and people can't get out.
Does the city have any concerns as to like putting in this much fill or removing this much of the floodplain?
Heath, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Commissioner Culhane, as far as the design standards go, like Brandy indicated, the roads would be constructed to an appropriate elevation so that there isn't, there's only a certain degree of inundation allowed over the roadways in both a minor and major storm event. That's the 5-year and the 100-year storm event. So those criteria are looked at when we review and approve the construction plans. As far as the fill is concerned, another thing we've also done here is required that the developer provide us a geotech report. The geotech report will provide soil borings at a minimum of 400-foot spacing, and all throughout these rights-of-way that are being proposed for platting. Those soil borings from the geotechnical engineer will also lead the geotech engineer to provide design recommendations for the subgrade and the buildup of that roadway, including the base course and the pavement section as well. So once we get that report, shy of the geotech finding any surprises of things that look unbuildable or troublesome that need to be addressed with engineering fill or soil correction measures, we would, of course, abide by any recommendations that they would provide in their report.
But what about downstream impacts? That's what I'm talking about. Because I mean, and I'm not trying to make this difficult. It looks to me like a fair amount of this is 100-year floodplain. We fill all that in. Aren't we losing that retention then? I mean, and what happens down by Tractor Supply or the new Endra stuff that we're doing? I mean, does that now become floodplain, or we have flooding issues down? I mean, are we playing a game of, you don't understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, Brandy, could you touch on the floodplain fill allowances in relation to a detailed study and how those impacts are taken into account in those detailed studies?
Yep. So with it being a 100-year floodplain, you can fill, and there is adequate storage that it can be dispersed still if within the floodway. You cannot fill in a floodway, then you would need a no-rise certificate, and typically a CLOMAR and then a LOMAR, which is a conditional letter of map revision based on fill.
So there's going to be like some retention ponds, so it'll give it like a day or something to settle in without, like you're saying, going to Tractor Supply or something.
Yes, and they do. We have those stormwater detention pond requirements, and then in this watershed, actually, it is you do not hold back the 100-year because of what the downstream impacts. So it's to mitigate the peak event, you want to push the water through. Otherwise, it would all compound during the peak.
But we feel comfortable that Willow Creek's drainage can handle that between this and the confluence. I don't even know where the confluence is. Where is confluence of the Big Sioux and Willow Creek? Is that south of town?
Yes.
'Cause
I don't know.
mean,
I don't know.
The only thing I can think of is when you drive by on 212 and to the north you can see, and it seems really steep and narrow, right? And then to the south you've got Menards is built up, right? I'm just curious. I mean, we feel comfortable that this, if we fill in a bunch of stuff and we have an event, that there's going to be proper drainage and or retention such that
Yeah.
it doesn't create downstream issues.
Yes, because they will still have to route that water to a pond and then release it at the pre-developed grade. So even though you're filling, and then they are required to fill when they're in the floodplain. I mean, well, not necessarily, but they can do wet flood proofing or whatnot, but the structure has to be elevated or wet flood proofed because it's commercial to a foot above the base flood elevation.
Well, and you've got the impervious structure issue too, right? Because if you build a bunch of parking lots and stuff, I mean, I just want to make sure that we don't create a problem for the city or for somebody else.
Yeah, no, and they would still have to route that, and valid concerns, and thank you for bringing those up. But they would still have to route it to a pond, and like I said, it's the 2-year event. So in the 100-year storm, though, that is recommended because to get the water out of there. But it's really the same amount of water because you're not going to. We're routing it to a pond, and then entering the watershed.
I believe that Justin Peterson, the assistant city engineer, is online, and also Colin DeYoung, the engineer or the engineer of record from Austin Engineering, the surveyor of record, are both available. Justin has reviewed that drainage report, and I don't know if you want to chime in on that, Justin, as to the routing and any adverse impacts that were noted in the drainage report.
There was no adverse impacts that was noted in the drainage report. It's routed to that pond, kind of on the west side, the existing pond there, and then it's flows to the south and into the Willow Creek. And what Brandy was explaining is what the report says. They're allowing the 100-year to flow at the pre-development rate or less.
And again, I apologize because I'm out of my element here. I'm not an engineer. I don't understand hydrology. I just understand that if you take a bunch, if you fill a bunch of stuff in and you put a bunch of impervious surfaces, you're going to have more runoff, right? And you're going to have more water, and it's got to go somewhere.
And they need to design accordingly for that
Okay,
then.
all right. Well, I mean, assuming the city feels comfortable with it, I don't.
Yeah. And the construction plans, I think actually we got revisions today, but as far as like Justin said, with the hydraulic analysis, that we were comfortable with what they had designed.
I just wanted to mention one other thing, if I could. At the building permit level, should this get to that point, we will be looking at that geotech report, and then based on what we find there, we could require individual borings on the lots if necessary. That sometimes comes up when you have an area like this where there's been a lot of fill. So we may look at those lots on an individual basis as well, just for protection of the structures, and that would also give recommendations as to the design.
Any additional questions from the board? Concerns or comments? All right, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote on this.
All right. Spire,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
and Dolly.
Yes. Motion carries. Moving on to item 7, the open public comments. Did we have anybody that signed up for the open public comment period?
No.
We'll move on to item 8. Is there any new business?
None that I have.
I do have something. I just wanted to let the board know and see if you felt it appropriate to bring forth an amendment to the zoning ordinance that would look at where churches are allowed and just making sure that they have equal opportunity with like businesses and such, just to meet the RLUIPA Act and also for those opportunities. So if the board feels that appropriate, we will start working on that amendment.
I think it's a good idea.
Sounds good. Any other new business?
None that I
Any
have.
old business?
No, none that I have for old business.
Any reason for executive session?
Nope.
All right, then thank you, everybody. I'll go ahead and adjourn us.
All right. Thank you.